And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Sorry for the shenanigan at the beginning of the stream. I messed up my OBS setup. It's been a while since we did an interview, so that's on me. Apologies for that, but everything is back to normal, and we will have an interview tonight. It's been a while, but it's gonna be great. You're gonna love it. You don't have a choice. So tonight, who do we have with us? We're going to not discuss with an MEP as we do usually. This time we're going a bit outside the parliament. We're still staying in Brussels, don't worry. We are going to talk to a lobbyist, something that is, I know, a curse word almost, but we're going to talk about that tonight. And I invited tonight with us the Director General of the BEUC. BEUC, what is it? It's the European Consumer Organization. So they are people who are representing you and I as consumers all around Europe. How are EU policies affecting consumers and making sure that in the end this is done in a way that is positive for everyone in the sense of in their role as consumers. So as usual, you know the rules. I will quickly remind everything. Our guest will stay with us for about an hour. After that, she will be free to enjoy the rest of her evening. You'll be stuck with me for another half an hour to debrief a bit the interview, discuss what you thought, answer additional questions, yada yada, you know the drill. As usual, I've prepared my questions. If you have questions, of course, the chat is there for that. You can suggest your questions. I will keep an eye on it. And if the questions are relevant, we have time, etc., etc., I will, of course, relay them to our guest, and she will be, I'm sure, very pleased to answer your question about BEUC, what do they do there, and the conversation that we're going to have. I think I covered the basis, so I suggest that we start, especially since we start a bit later than usual. Sorry again for that. Good evening, Monique Goyens. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, having accepted our interview. So you heard me right now do a brief introduction on what is BEUC. Is there anything that I forgot that you would like to add about BEUC before we start?
So we can dive directly into your questions. But I would like to say, I don't really consider me to be as being a lobbyist, because you know that's a word that is connotated. So we very often say that we are consumer advocates, or when I want to tease my colleagues who are really industry lobbyists, I say to them, yes, I might be a lobbyist, but it's for the good cause.
We go into the usual topic, advocacy versus lobbying. But I mean, under EU regulation, EU law, well, it's all the same in the eye of the regulators. But point taken. But actually, let's start with you. Monique Goyens. You've been you're Director General of the BEUC. You've been actually working BEUC for quite some time. What pushed you to work on EU policy and then to join BEUC and keep working in BEUC? What's a bit your story and the motivation there?
Well, my story is that I'm a lawyer by training, and as of my first job, I worked at university on consumer law, and it was in fact the second consumer law center in Europe that I was working in. It's le Centre de droit de la consommation in Louvain-la-Neuve in Belgium, and it really gave me the virus. And you know, it's so great to be able to get up in the morning and to tell to yourself you're doing something that should be good for the people. So you have really a drive, and that drive. I can say it never left me. And so I have worked, so I have more or less 40 years, a little bit more than 40 years of work experience. And out of those 40 years, I did 30 in consumer law and policy, and 10 in development cooperation. But development cooperation was really a parenthesis. And when I got the opportunity to go and work for BEUC at European level, I really jumped and applied, and was happy to be selected by the board of BEUC, and I have never regretted my choice. It's really feeling useful and having a drive, being proud of what you achieve for people. Sometimes being frustrated, it doesn't go always quick enough, but there are so many, let's say, successes that we can say that we managed to get for the people, and also to demonstrate to the people that Europe is not so far away from them at the end of the day. And so that makes me quite proud and gives me the drive every morning.
And why did you go for Europe specifically? Because could have decided to work at national level in the I don't know, Belgian National Association of Consumers. What led you to say, oh, okay, I'm going to do it at European level?
Because in fact, it's at European level that it happens. there is so much that is being dictated, but in the positive sense, and the initiatives are taken at European level, that it's there where you need to be, because that's where you are at the origin of the decision making. Of course, there is an interaction with member states, but the fact that there has been when I started working on EU consumer law, it was in the 1990s, and in fact, that's where really there was a huge push at European level to really promote consumer protection. That was I would say, the golden years of consumer policy were in the 90s, spinning over into the 2000s. And it was really so exciting to be there, because there was so much political will to make it happen, and to support the people in being protected against unsafe chemicals, against unfair contract terms, against misleading advertising. And so, yes, that's where I found was the most impact of the work that we were doing.
Mhm. And so, as your Director General, can you explain briefly what is a Director General? What is the function of a Director General in BEUC and in association in general, organization in Brussels?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm of course the spokesperson. I'm the face of BEUC when it comes to let's say, meetings, events, discussions with policymakers. So that's my first job. But I have to say that I'm the face, but I'm part of the brain, but not all the brain, because being the Director General is also being, let's say, coordinating a team. And I'm very happy, because at the BEUC Secretariat is made up of 60 people, 60 people, all experts, and I'm very proud of them. And they provide me with all the briefings that I need in order to be the spokesperson that BEUC deserves. So this is really something, it's great to be there. And on top of that, as Director General, I'm also in direct contact with the member organizations. You know, it's an umbrella organization, so we have members in all in all member states, but beyond member states, also in Switzerland or in Norway. And so it is very important to reach out to the members, so that, because we only have legitimacy to work if we have direct contacts with the people in the member states, and that only happens via our members. I cannot claim that I know what a Norwegian or a Danish or a Luxembourg consumer is expecting, or what the problems are that they are facing. It is because our members are in daily contact with them, and that they bring it to us, that we can really represent them properly.
And so BEUC is advocacy, lobbying, or however we want to call it. But is that the only thing that BEUC is doing? Do you have other aspects? Do you do projects, enforcement? Is there other dimension to what BEUC is? It's not just drafting amendments and sending them to the Commission and whatever.
Now, first of all, we try to inspire the Commission. It's not only about sending amendments, it's also, you know, the whole roaming. I think everybody in your audience knows what free roaming is. So, you know, not having to pay for mobile phones in the other cross-border. But this all started with a report that our French member did, saying the prices of telecoms across border are really not acceptable. And it took us 12 years, but it's due to thanks to that report by a consumer organization that European people now have free roaming. So it's about agenda setting, it's about inspiring, it's also about supporting our network. Because, you know, consumer organizations in some countries are very strong, but they are not so strong in other countries. So there is also creating a solidarity between the richer and the less richer consumer organizations. And as you said, a more and more important topic is enforcement. Because very often consumer law is a paper tiger, as I call it. Because, you know, you have beautiful rights on paper. You know, we all have a legal guarantee of 2 years when we buy things. But when you try to really use that guarantee, it's quite a headache. And so, and you have a lot of, you know, like GDPR, you know, that you have data protection rights, but what happens when you don't accept a cookie or whatever, or you don't accept to tick the boxes? So there is a lot that needs really to be enforced and you don't do it as an individual consumer. So you need a consumer organization to represent you. And we do, I mean, our members do that very often at national level, but sometimes we coordinate because some of the cases are just European-wide. And so then you can have economies of scale if you have a coordinating body like BEUC in order to bring all the expertise together and to make a very strong case in front of the authorities.
Something that you mentioned is the notion of agenda setting. So how do you make a policy point at EU level? So you mentioned roaming. You say, it started with a report like 12 years ago, etc. Can you maybe walk us a bit? How do you as BEUC, you have a point that you think is really important. How do you convince the Commission to make a legislation on that, and then it goes through the merry process in the Parliament, in the Council, etc. Can you a bit explain?
Yes, I try. I mean, there is a very recent example that I can maybe take. Our members have tested online products to see whether they are safe. And in fact, there is a lot of products that are sold on marketplaces that are really failing the most obvious safety tests. And so we have had a collection of really quite, very, very shocking unsafe products, like fire alarms that can catch fire, a lot of unsafe children clothes, a lot of chemicals in cosmetics. So very, very plain examples of illegal products, because it's illegal to have unsafe products on the European market. And so we have collected all this evidence and we have brought it to the on the one side, we have brought it to the market authorities saying this is unsafe. So you need to bring it to recall it from the market. But on the other hand, we have said you need to improve the legislation when it comes to product safety when they are sold online, because the problem with those products is that they are most often they are imported, they are not produced in Europe. That means that the producer is not known and the seller neither. It's the marketplace, the only contact that the consumer has. And marketplaces, I mean, it's Amazon, it's AliExpress, it's Wish.com. They say, oh, but we are not selling, we are not in the supply chain, we are just hosting that website. And so we have had now, thanks to that, to all the evidence. In fact, the most important element, if you want to set an agenda, is to have compelling evidence. You bring the case, you cannot just be ideological. You cannot say, you just have to put the reality in front of the policymaker and then come with the good arguments and be constructive and propose a solution. So, and thanks to that research and that testing that has been carried out by our members, we have provisions in the Digital Services Act, which is a very famous recent legislation, but also in the General Product Safety Regulation that has also now more responsibilities for marketplaces. And more recently, and it's not yet adopted, but the Commission has also reacted very positively, and they have called us for a meeting. And it was the first time in my life that I was called for a meeting by the tax director, the tax director.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, because they had to start a reform of customs regulation. And so now they have issued a proposal on customs where the problem of the import of online of dangerous products that have been sold online is also really tackled. Needs to go still to the Parliament and through the Council, but still that means that they have their attention has been raised by our work, so that they have really said we need to do something. Once we have that on the agenda of the Commission, once it is in the proposal, then we of course continue pushing and we follow the whole proposal through the legislative process, meeting the MEPs, meeting the attachés, and trying to keep the let's say the ambition as high as possible, sometimes even improving the initial text.
And you mentioned earlier how the 90s were a bit the golden age of consumer rights at EU level. Today, we're in 2023. How high would you say are consumer interests, consumer rights in the EU list of priorities? Like, basically, do you feel that policymakers listen to you across the board when BEUC is saying something?
Well, I really think that we are a respected organization. We are trying hard always. I mean, we are never exaggerating. We are never violent in our words. I mean, when we get angry, it is quite a signal that something is very wrong in the market or in legislation, or if there is a fraud. So we always try to be constructive and provide solutions. What I would like to say is maybe, in fact, what is become more and more obvious now is that consumers are all over the place, even if you don't use the word consumer. When you see digital, all the digital transition, it's all about data subjects, they call it now, or it's about protection of children online. But this is a consumer relationship. So we really need there, or if you, now one of the new topics that might really be very interesting for your audience is influencer marketing. I mean, what are influencers doing? And so this is about, it's about consumer protection, even if the word consumer is not necessarily said. It's also about energy prices. It is about, so energy prices, it's something that was not really considered as a consumer issue, but because also in the past, energy was like it was not really a competitive market. Now we have seen it's a liberalized market, many problems, not even speaking about the energy crisis. We need absolutely, and that's a very important element that I would like to stress. Everybody speaks about Green Deal, the green transition. but the green transition we need to succeed, because otherwise no consumer on any that planet, huh? So we need to but you can only concede if a critical mass of people do go and transit towards change their lifestyles, not just the elite. Everybody, or let's say a majority of people, needs to change the way we eat, the way we move, the way we heat our houses, the way we buy t-shirts or not.
That's actually a point I wanted to raise, maybe a bit later on because indeed the Green Deal is probably like the one of the biggest, if not the biggest, policy of this mandate, and we are seeing more and more like debates on the balancing act between how ambitious should you be and then taking into account the realities of people, of consumers. So I think it would be interesting to see how BEUC tackle or reach this balance, because you represent consumers, and we are seeing across the EU more and more like people, consumers who say, oh well, yeah, I'm sure I want to fight the climate change, but I'm feeling that right now this is going too far. So as representative in a way of consumers, how do you reach this? Because I know it's common knowledge. In France, we had the Yellow Jacket movement. In Germany, you have all the issues around heat pumps. So there is a backlash going on around that. So how does BEUC tackle this?
This is a great question. And the heat pumps in Germany, it's the most shocking examples of fake news, huh? Because there has been a whole movement around heat pumps, and the public opinion has been told in Germany that they had to remove their gas boilers, directly, and to replace it by heat pumps. Of course, this gives you a revolution because it's a very heavy investment, and it's not necessarily, your house is not necessarily ready. But that was really fake news, no? And it's because I've been talking about that with the director of the agency in charge of energy supervision in Germany, and he said, we cannot really use any argument anymore to have heat pumps in the German market because it has become emotional. But what I would like to say, from the consumer perspective, what is key is that and we have really seen a lot of very good initiatives at European level on the green transition, and we are not an environmental organization. We always check the validity of a proposal with consumer eyes. Mm-hmm. We know that consumers need to be made sustainable, or our lifestyles need to be made sustainable. You have only one choice there. If you want people to become sustainable, you need to make the sustainable option affordable, easy, and attractive. With those three conditions, and that means that you need to have a vision as a policymaker, and that you need to be blunt, because that means, for example, that all the money that currently is being spent on budgets under the agricultural policy, common agricultural policy, and that is there to promote meat, should be redirected to promote fruit and vegetables, for example, or to help farmers that want to transform their farms into more sustainable farms. And so I'm not saying that everybody needs to be a vegetarian. That is not possible. You cannot ask people to become vegetarians, but you can support them, you can nudge them into eating a little less meat, into a little bit less dairy, and stop subsidizing meat and subsidize rather the more healthy and the more sustainable options. So this means this has to happen in the food area, has also to happen in other areas like cars, like home renovation, like chemicals, for example. So transport, of course, stop subsidizing air transport. This is bad for the planet. And for the moment, rail will never be able to compete with air transport as long as kerosene is not being taxed. So you see, you need a political fiscal incentives in order for people to be, to find the sustainable option attractive and affordable. We have the cost of living crisis. We cannot. So we know that overall sustainable lifestyles will be more expensive. The problem being, we don't have the choice. We need to move there, because otherwise, it will be even unaffordable once the crisis hits fully.
So in a way, you're saying that, okay, we know that it's going to be a hit for consumers because they will have to pay more for better quality food or more sustainable food. But you say, okay, we don't really have a choice. It's how it is, and we have to take the hit. Or
no. What I'm going to say, first of all, you can mitigate the price, because you can shift fiscal fiscal policies towards zero VAT for sustainable options. It is really very possible to eat cheap in a sustainable manner. You replace the meat, and you don't need to replace it every day. You replace it a few days by lentils or by pulses. It is healthier, it is cheaper, and it is more sustainable. You see, but this is something that is not mainstream, and people are not necessarily aware of it. And so this needs to be a little bit put more, how would I say, visible on the radar of the people. Or then there is this problem of, like electric cars. Also, people say, I cannot afford an electric car. I can understand that, but there are measures. I have an electric car. I love my electric car, really, and it costs me nothing. Now that I had to pay the upfront cost, but for the moment I have solar panels. I charge it on solar panels, so zero cost when it comes to my fuel, if I can say so. And it costs me almost nothing in maintenance, because it's much cheaper to have an electric car maintained than a combustion engine. But the problem is you can help people bearing the upfront cost, for example, by promoting a second-hand market. How do you promote a second-hand market for electric cars? By making it, for example, mandatory to have fleet cars electrified. So it's the companies who buy the fleet cars, and then you create a second-hand market. Those are the type of policies that would need to be rolled out in all types of markets in order to make the more sustainable option the affordable one. And we have made studies both on heat pumps and on electric cars in different countries. And when you look at the total cost of ownership of the electric solutions, in fact, you are winning very quickly as a consumer. But it's the upfront investment that is really the hurdle. And that means that policymakers need to help you with either with tax incentives or with green financial instruments that help you mitigate the initial cost. And there we see it's quite a lack of market there. We think that the financial sector is not creative enough to help people with green. It's all there is a lot of talk.
There's
about
no incentive.
Yeah,
there's no.
So there should be a little bit more creativity. They are very creative in a lot of AI things and what have you, but not really to support the transition. We have not seen it yet.
I did a bit of a segue on environmental policy because you mentioned it. I'll go back a bit. You say it. We all consumers in one shape or another, and something that comes back very often, like when I speak to people about the EU, a question that comes back constantly is, but how did the EU concretely made my life better? So, like, as an organization that works on for consumer rights, or things that are concrete for consumers, like what would you say like are probably the most important or most concrete advances that consumer got thanks to the EU? And apart maybe from GDPR, I mean GDPR we mentioned it to death at this stage, but things that are maybe less known, that it's the EU who did it and everybody benefits it today as a consumer.
Well, I mean, very clearly, drink water. Which, you can drink your water and without being afraid of dying or of being sick. Food. We are the safest place in the world to eat food. This is something we're doing every day, several times, and we don't really think about it because we consider this for granted. But behind this being granted, there's a huge system of food control. And of course, zero risk doesn't exist. But what we see is that most of the time, food poisoning happens because your fridge was not clean, or you are not necessarily clean, but you did not really manage your food. And food poisoning is a very rare thing happening in comparison, even in comparison to America, the United States. We have much better figures, statistics when it comes to food safety than in the United States. So not even speaking about Africa, for example. So this is something we just take for granted. We have very good standards, safety standards. I mean, be it cars, be it toys, be it cosmetics, chemicals. So I think those are things we use every day, and where we don't worry. Of course, we as a consumer organization, we want always to increase the protection because there are new risks that arise. Also because sometimes, with the development of new analytical tools, you see that some of the chemicals that were safe 20 years ago appear not necessarily to be as safe. So we try to phase them out. But overall, we have a very safe environment. We have also quite a good protection when it comes to financial services, much better than in the United States. For example, card payments. We are much better protected with, strong customer authentication systems than in other parts of the world. It's always good not to have to panic that when you lose or when somebody stole your credit card, that they are going to totally, take everything.
To empty your account, yeah. And so all that were rules that were set by the EU and harmonized, of course, across the EU. Okay. And like, but I mean, we talked about food, we talked about chemicals. Like, is there something that is maybe little known and but that is equally important?
Maybe I take it so much for granted. I mean, the whole we have all this system about contract terms. We have, sales of goods, legal guarantees. There is a lot that is being done in Europe that doesn't exist in other jurisdictions. Again, we have a lot of contacts with our colleagues in the United States, and we really see that they are looking up to us, saying, "Hey guys, do you really have that protection? We cannot believe it, huh?" So, and this is something that we take the right of withdrawal when you buy something online. This is something that people take for granted, but that has been a fight, huh? With there was a lot of counter lobbying there. And if we listen to them, it would be really something, that would make us give a stop to their business. But then also the whole information, we have a lot of information of labeling requirements, be it safety labeling, on like detergents, but be it also on, just ingredient labeling in food. That has been, it's not as good as we would like it to see, but still, a lot about the ingredients in your food stuff. So it can be important for you because for health reasons or just because you want to know what you're eating. So we have an eco label that is really well done, which is one of the best certification labels, the European eco label, the flour. This is something that is quite a reference because it is based on robust criteria. It is managed by a public system. So we can really rely, if we want to make sustainable choices, that flour gives us the confidence that we need in order to say this is not greenwashing. Huh?
And these standards that the EU has set in terms of consumer rights, like, do you see that something that is setting the standard that is then copied around the world, or for it's just something, there's a bit of a EU island in terms of consumer rights, and your colleagues in the US are a bit jealous of what you can get, but it's not inspiring. They don't manage to use that as a precedent to then push it in the US or in other parts of the world. Because we talked a lot about the Brussels effect in competition, etc. But does that apply to consumer rights, for instance?
I mean, there are several international organizations, and certainly when it comes to consumer authorities or competition authorities, they talk to each other. It's ISPEN, it's called. Don't ask me what the acronym means, but it's this international network. You have also international networks of data protection authorities. So you have and then you have the transatlantic networks. And I think that, of course, you cannot always copy paste, of course, but I think that a lot of what we are doing is inspiring other jurisdictions now, and certainly when it comes to digital, and I think when it comes to the digital protection of people, there is a lot of dialogue going on for the moment with the United States, huh?
And so we talked about the achievement of the past, maybe some of the currently, like, what are the biggest fights that BEUC is doing to improve like consumer rights, like today, like what are the big files that BEUC is focusing on?
Well, I mean, sustainability is a big one, huh? Because it's a question of life.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Huh? I mean, it's a little bit. It looks a little bit dramatic, but at the end of the day, we should do it now. We should not wait for it to be even worse. And so there, we are very concerned about this green fatigue, or the pause button, how it is called in the Brussels bubble, so that there is even governments. The Prime Minister of Belgium even said, I was very not pleased at all. I'm a Belgian, sorry, I didn't say that. I was not pleased at all, because he said we should really pause now the regulatory craziness at European level. And we really say this is not in the consumer's name. As a consumer organization, we are totally aware that it's going to hurt. Some of this is going to hurt because there might be a price increase at a given moment, or we might need to make investments, but it's even going to hurt even more if we wait longer. So we really believe that what is happening now, of course, we are at the end of this commission, at the end of this parliament. And what we see is that there is now a stop because there was a proposal, or there was the plan to have a new proposal on chemicals that would improve the REACH regulation. It has not yet been proposed. There was a proposal in the pipeline on sustainable food systems. That is something that we really need if we want to promote more sustainable food. And it's also being postponed. There was a proposal to go to promote multimodal mobility services, meaning make it possible for a rail passenger to move from rail to air or from air to boat, whatever, but while having the same rights and having interconnectivity rights, if I can say so. This is all in the fridge. And this is something, it's the wrong signal. And that's something that we will certainly, for the next European Parliament and for the next Commission, we will certainly put that very proactively and vocally on their drawing board, so that they don't lose that somewhere in the new legislature. We really need to go on pushing. And sometimes what we find from the real dirty lobbyists, if I can say so, very shocking. For example, the agricultural lobby, they are speaking in the consumer's name. They say consumers don't want to pay more for sustainable food. Like the pesticides, the whole pesticides discussion. And we say, don't talk in the consumer's name. That's not your job. It is our job. And consumer perspective is much more nuanced. Of course, there are people who cannot afford. They need to choose between heating their house or eating a supper. But overall, people are aware that and expect policymakers to promote sustainable options. That's what our surveys say.
And beyond, so since we're talking now a bit, we're approaching the EU election. It's going to be next year. So before going into more the policy, like how does an organization like BEUC like approach the election? Because there's no new legislative work. So what are you going to do like next year, basically?
I think we will be first of all, now we are really working still on what's in the pipeline, and it will be a crazy time until April, let's say. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, we need to prepare, and we are already working on this now. We need to prepare the next mandate, the next consumer agenda. And so we are working now already, and we have already initial contacts with the Commission services in order to prepare what's going to be the priority of the next Commission. And it's now that it's happening. Mm-hmm. And that is also something that we have in the preparation of the of the Parliament elections. We have also reached out to the political parties to tell them what we believe is an important priority for the European elections, because we are close to the people. We are not really doing something at European level because it's the people in the countries who are voting. So it's our member organizations who try to be active with the let's say the candidates, but at national level.
So basically, on this last point, to make it clear for the audience, so basically you have for the French, que choisir 60 millions de consommateurs who are writing a paper and send it to the various political parties. Say, okay, for consumers, we would like you to do that for the European election, in trying to influence in a way the political program and the priorities for the various political parties.
No, I'm not sure that they're doing that via letter. They can also do that.
Yeah, of course.
They do different techniques. They can also organize meetings, whatever. I mean, there can be outreach sessions. And we will only step in once the MEPs are elected, so in June, in order to talk to those who will be elected. And, then there is this whole process of creating the committees, and there will be chairs of committees. And there we have to talk to those who will be chairing the committees that are the most consumer relevant. It can be the IMCO committee, Internal Market and Consumer Protection. It can also be the Environment Committee or the ITRE or TRAN. I mean, there are many committees that have consumer files. And at the same time, as of the summer, we will already work towards the Commission. I mean, the new Commission, the new President, whenever they will be, of course, appointed, in order to very quickly, being aware that we are not the only one doing that, but still, a consumer perspective needs to be also in the program of the next Commission.
And you already mentioned that you will be pushing hard the Commission, like to keep the ambition high on the topic of environmental sustainability. Is there any other topic that you're trying to push for new initiative you're trying to push for the next Commission?
I mean, sustainability is a very big one. Has many ramifications. It's food, it's energy, it's also textile. I think we believe that textile it's the third polluting sector. So it's a huge thing. And there was a textile strategy that has been proposed, but it has not given any concrete proposal in terms of regulatory framework. But one element that I have not yet mentioned is, in fact, enforcement. What we see is that there is a proliferation in all sectors of a lot of legislation or regulation, but then enforcement lags behind. And so there is this feeling that whatever you do, if you don't respect the law, who is going to worry about that? And so we believe that also there, national authorities don't have really the capacity to confront those multinationals who are present all across the EU and maybe even further. And we believe that there should be much more, let's say, can I say it's maybe not a sexy word, but centralization or coordination at European level for all those actions that involve more than one European country. So if a big tech company that I will not name is doing something illegal, it should not, for the moment, it's overcomplicated. You know, the Dieselgate, I mean, this is even not a big tech company, but Volkswagen, they are still not compensating consumers in most of the European countries where they have messed it up. And that is not normal. I mean, this is more, it's like 7 years ago that this scandal broke out. And so we believe that doing something wrong, you know, for example, there was one unfair contract term in WhatsApp. It was there for 6 weeks, and it's more than 2.5 years that we're trying to get this, sanctioned. This is not normal. So stepping up enforcement in order, because if you don't step up enforcement, if you don't have rights respected, it's bad for the people who are the victims. It's bad for the competitors who have respected the law because they are disadvantaged with regard to the person or to the company who has just, doesn't care about respecting anything.
Since you mentioned the Dieselgate, it reminded me of something because I was in a parliament back then during Dieselgate, and there was a whole comparison between how it was dealt with in the EU and how it was dealt with in the US, because in the US they have the class action system, which forced Volkswagen to give very quickly big compensation to consumers, while in the EU we don't have per se a class action. So
now we have it.
Now we have it, but it's fairly recent.
Thanks for Dieselgate, because it was because there has been a lot of political resistance. But Volkswagen, can I say, was so arrogant in the way that they handled the European Commission that at the Commission finally decided that they would make a proposal on the collective redress. Now, this is still, many member states have not yet implemented this directive, but it's, let's say...
It's in progress.
Yes, it's in progress, and the first cases will certainly arrive in the coming, under the next legislature. Okay,
so we don't, it's being done, being implemented, but we don't have yet like the first like concrete cases. It has not yet reached the level. Okay, okay, good to know. I'm just looking at my list of questions. Chat, of course, if you have questions, do let me know.
I just wanted to add one element, because that is also used, which is medicines. It's very, there is also a revision of the pharmaceutical legislation, and there it is very important, and it's not done yet, that medicines become affordable and easy to access, because it is not normal that in Romania, some medicines arrive on the market 2 years later than in Germany, just because the company has decided to concentrate on Germany. So there is a lot. I mean, if you're on the single market, there should not be any discrimination depending on the country where you're living in. So this is also something that we have put on the to-do list of the let's say the next parliament, and certainly also of the next commission. I mean, there is a proposal for the moment on pharma legislation. We are not sure it will survive because it's not very far in the process currently. But then if it is being reproposed next legislature, it's very important that shortages and accessibility will be, together with affordability, taken very seriously.
And so the BEUC is in a way, to simplify, a federation of consumer associations. So you have your members, the National Association of Belgium, France, in 31 countries, I think, if I remember correctly. 31 countries, 31. So 31 different countries. Is everyone always aligned? So you have, in a way, unanimity of approach between all the 31, or is there sometimes like differences of approaches? Because I don't know, the French one will not see the topic in the same manner as the I don't know, the Romanian one, and you have to deal with the internal divergence, try to find compromises, or even in the end not find a compromise? Does that happen?
Well, it happens, but I must say, really, in my 17 years as Director General, I have had conflicts, really, like tough discussions 3 times. So it doesn't happen so often. But what I would say is that there is a huge diversity in our members. You know, I have one member that has 700 employees. So it's the biggest European consumer organization. And then the other extreme is Cyprus, where you have 3 volunteers, and it's all. So of course, the expertise that the first member can give to us and share with us, I mean, you cannot really contradict them when you are a 3-person organization. But there is a lot of commonality. There are sometimes differences, and then we have a system. So we don't work with voting, we work with consensus. And so if we really cannot find a position, we shut up. Can I say so? It happens, we don't like to shut up because, but sometimes you need to be absent to the debate rather than irrelevant. And if you cannot really, you need to have your members behind you. If you don't have your members behind you, then you become really a little bit shaky in your argumentation. But it happens very, very rarely because the consumer perspective is quite, let's say, consensual. There can be sometimes differences, of course, for example, when it comes to sources of energy, nuclear energy, depending on the country where you're living in. It can be different approach, whether you come from Germany or from France. And so this is the type of thing that can sometimes, and then we just decide, to let that conversation to others.
Okay.
But it,
and you said it already. You're actually a big organization. You said you are 60% in the secretariat of BEUC, so that's a very big organization for Brussels standard. I think that almost puts you on par with an organization like Google in terms of probably they have a little bit more. From what I remember,
compare me with Google, please.
at least in terms of number of staff. Where my point is that you are a big organization, and I think I agree when you said that you're a respected voice. You are maybe even some would say a powerful voice in EU policy. So, do you think it gives you like this size, this respectability, the fact that you represent consumer? Does that allow you like to go toe to toe with an actor like Google, an actor like Amazon, which is a big tech, and you may be on opposing end from time to time? So, do you feel sometimes you have an ability to have almost an equal fight to them?
Well, I can say I have no complex at all because I have much bigger legitimacy to talk than they have. They are representing their own interest. I'm representing public interest. I mean, of course, I'm not democratically elected, but I have no interest for my sector if something goes in one direction rather than the other. So somebody said to me once, I said once when I was young, so like 30, let's say, that's young. And I said to somebody from the industry, we were at the meeting, I said, I'm not in an easy position because I'm a consumer representative, I'm a woman, and I'm young. And he said to me, you're a woman, just make the best out of it because that's an argument. Second, you're a consumer representative, you're much more legitimate than any of us in this room. And you're young, and then he said, be patient, that goes away very quickly. So, and that is quite a lesson. I think not about being young or so, that I have learned on myself, but it's the fact that when Google speaks up, everybody knows that they represent their own interests and that you always have to take it not with a pinch of salt, but with a kilo of salt, what they're saying. While we have no interest in that. And really, and the expertise that they have, they talk a lot, they're very polite, they give a lot of money here and there, but my people are as experts in matters that are of common interest than they are. So no complex at all.
All right. And since you mentioned, you have had a long career in Brussels now, over the years, like, have you seen like any evolution in the lobbying scene? How lobbying is being done? Do you see like more women doing it? An evolution in the way it's done, or it's like the lobbying 20 years ago is pretty much the same as it was as it is now?
I think there has been an evolution, certainly also when it comes to the way we are now as a consumer organization. So I speak about how we are being perceived. The other lobbyists respect us. So, and we see also that a lot of organizations, of trade organizations, when they organize events, they want to have us on the panel, to have some sort of a representativity. So I think that that's something that has changed, because in the early days of my career, we were a little bit seen like the hippies, if I can say so, like the Baba Cools, and that's something that was then always a little bit hard to fight, because we were still serious people. We researched what we said. It was not just ideological. There is also the big change that has happened is the transparency register. Huh? This is something that has changed a little bit, not necessarily enough in our view, because too often we see that maybe some meetings have not necessarily been registered, while we know that they have taken place. But I think it has become more institutional, more respectful of certain rules. I see much less dinners and fancy parties being where the money is being spent than before. Not that we were invited or that we spent that money, but that was a little bit so the party sphere in Brussels. It has become much more serious, I would say.
Okay. And since you mentioned the transparency register, there is in the Commission something that is being done and that angers or worries a number of NGOs, particularly, is the Commission is trying to come up with a new legislation to have more transparency on foreign financing, non-European financing of NGOs, organizations that are lobbying at EU level, notably targeting foundations. I know that BEUC is financed partly by foundations, so there is an inspiration. The Commission saying they're looking a bit at what happened in Qatargate and what in the US on the FARA legislation. So where you have already a foreign agent regulation. So as BEUC, you're not a transparency organization, but you're an NGO. You have financing that comes partly from some foundation. How do you approach this kind of debate? Do you see that as a threat for you? Do you think it's fair to have more transparency on these kind of things? What's your take?
I think transparency is key in a democracy. I really think we should be very relaxed about that, as long as everybody is transparent. If Google displays all the people that they are paying directly or indirectly, I'm happy now. I'm happy to tell everybody, and it's by the way written on our website, who is funding us. And but that needs then also be enforced. So the problem with so I'm fully in favor of transparency, and but I would also like the entries into the transparency register to be checked. Mm-hmm. I mean, not sampling. And sometimes it is just being believed on just because what you're writing, but there could also be sometimes some checking. And there are organizations, for example, big tech, who are all over the place. They are buying influence, and it's not corruption. I'm not speaking about corruption. I'm just speaking about infiltration. For example, the College of Europe, which is where you train the future officials of the EU. Has for a very long time received funding from Google. The European Observatory on Fake News, and it's not called like this, it's about Digital Media Observatory in Firenze, is being funded by Google. So can you imagine that an observatory that is related to fake news is being funded by one of the big companies that cannot manage fake news on its media? So this is the type of thing where I would like a little bit more political courage to put the finger where it hurts, and really to enforce transparency is only one step. It cannot be the last step. It needs to then also give consequences if something pops up that is not normal or not ethical.
I'm looking at a time where we're slowly getting towards the end. I will maybe finish with you, actually. You've been at BEUC, you worked for 17 years there. You are actually going to retire soon. You're going to leave BEUC at long last. I'm sure it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to do the transition. But from your career in BEUC, what would be the one thing or the thing that will stick with you, the thing that you are most proud of as your time as director general or in other position that you had in BEUC?
I think that the most proud, I think that I was able to set up a system of staff recruitment that gave me that team. So we have, first of all, I have been able to raise funds in order to. When I started, we were 24. Now we're 60. So I have been able to convince foundations, even if they're foreign agents, whatever that means, because many of them are European, and so that we do respectable work, and that has made it possible for us to hire more people. We have been able to. We are also being funded, of course, by the European Union partly. So we have been able to also demonstrate that we are doing good work and that we could also hire additional people. So I think the team that I've been able to set up together with, of course, other colleagues is the thing I'm the most proud of.
All right. And before I let you go, if you have a message like to the audience, like if they have to remember one thing from tonight, what would be your message to them?
Well, never forget that Europe is doing quite a lot of very daily things for you, keeping your food safe, keeping your cosmetics safe, keeping your detergent safe, and please go and vote at the European elections.
That's a message that is completely fine by me. Thank you very much, Ms. Goyens, for taking the time of answering our question tonight. Chat, make sure to thank her as well. You can follow BEUC on Twitter. I put the ad just below the video, so you can follow the news of this European Consumer Organization. Mrs. Goyens, I hope that you enjoyed this experience on Twitch. I think it went very well. You did very well. So thanks a lot again for coming over. Chat, stay with us. We're going to continue the debrief. So thank you very much, Ms. Goyens. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, chat. Let's chat up. Let me turn off Zoom. Bim bam boom. No, I will do the update later. Thank you very much. So let me know what you thought while I'll clean up everything there. Okay. All right, so as usual, I took my notes so we can discuss and debrief a little bit what was discussed tonight. So I'm quite happy like to have had this interview. I forgot to mention it in the introduction. Like, why did I invite BEUC? Because you know, usually I interview MEPs. I very rarely invite lobbies. They don't like the term lobby. We will discuss that in a bit. But usually I don't invite individual organization. But for this time, I decided to make an exception because BEUC is a very important voice in Brussels. It's a big organization, 60 people. I will give you some example afterwards, but 60 people. It's a very big organization in Brussels. BEUC carries a lot of weight in terms of it represents a lot. It's respected and listened to. Lobby, so I thought it was interesting to have an important organization to come explain a bit what they stand for, what they do, and also I thought that for you it would be interesting because they represent consumers. We all are consumers in one shape or form. So I thought, okay, that's something that may also that concerns you directly, because in a way there are people who represent you and I as consumers. So I felt that it would be interesting for you to hear a bit about this kind of organization, because often people think, oh yeah, in the EU, lobbying is only the big companies versus the environmental NGOs. No, it's much wider than that. You also have consumers. You have a lot of different organizations. Like, basically, something exists, there's a lobby about it. To summarize, so that's why I took a bit of an exception by inviting BEUC there, but let me know what you thought of it, generally speaking. Looking at my notes, so what did you talk about? Lobbying, debate as old as the world. Eurocity is similar? No. In terms of size, I don't know actually. I don't know. You know what? We're going to check. Just give me a second. I'm going to put the transparency register. EU transparency register. Boom. But it's big, and 60 people is very big. Like, to give you a point of comparison, like back when I was in Parliament, so that's a few years ago now, Google, they had like 50 plus staff. Like, now I'm a lobbyist in my organization, we're 5. So you know, it will not considered like a small organization. So no, 60 people is it's fucking huge. It's fucking huge. Let's see. So up, I will put the browser. Okay, let me. Okay, so here we are on the transparency register. So that's the website where you can find everything about lobbies. So you said, sorry, I'm in the French version. Can I switch the language somewhere? Français. English. Okay, so that's a public trick. Eurocities. Tac. So a lot of lobbies are registered in there. You give a lot of information on what you are, what you lobby about, so, the number of people you are, that you have in your staff, etc. In exchange, let's say you can get meetings with high level. You can obtain a meeting with high level people in the commission. You can get badges to get access to the parliament and the commission. So it gives you better access to an extent to European institutions. Alors, so it gives you like a lot of information, like where are the offices, the people in charge, the goals. Let's see. So that's it lists everything you contributed to. Alors, participation 20. So Eurocity is 20 people, which is already a good organization. It's a very decent size organization there. But okay, I'm not surprised. BEUC, like it's one of the big names in EU lobbying. There's, I mean, of course, because they are consumers, that they work on a lot of topics. BEUC tends to be in a lot of different, working on a lot of different things, and they are vocal on a lot of different topics. You expected them to be large. I have to say, I've never like had to work with Eurocity, so I know no particular ideas. I knew about Eurocities in general, but I never like had to deal with them personally, whether in my previous life or in this one. But yeah, still on lobbying. So there is, we discussed. She said at the beginning, I don't like to say that I do lobbying because I represent a public interest. I'd rather say that I do advocacy. So that's a very classic, let's say, distinction. NGOs or those who represent public interest with their quotes, because that's also debatable as a term, like if you associate it only to NGOs. But the NGOs tend to say, "Oh, I do advocacy. I'm not a lobby. I'm not doing lobbying. I'm doing advocacy." To a bit create a separation between them, the good guys, versus the lobbies, the bad guys. So lobbies being considered like the trade association, the companies, etc., etc. So the private interests, so to say. And so they created a bit this differentiation between lobbies and advocacy, even if it's legally doesn't exist. I mean, whether you're an NGO or Google, you're a lobby. In the eye of the law, in the eye of the European Union, you're a lobby. Lobby is whatever organization is trying to influence in one way or another public authorities, decision making. So it doesn't matter if you represent a public interest, a private interest, etc. You are a lobby. It's just that the term lobbying is very connotated, negatively connotated. You have a lot of people who are associated to corruption, to corruption. Let's say it like that. So NGOs try to differentiate themselves, and sometimes also like to play on this preconception that lobbying is evil, lobbying is borderline corruption, etc., etc. But in the end, it's exactly the same thing. Lobbying is whatever is done to influence public authorities in any shape or form. And that's why they all in the transparency register. You don't have a differentiation between lobbies and NGO. And like to give you a simplified categorization, you will find let's see. You will find 4 different types of lobbies in Brussels. Like under the umbrella, the word lobby, you have 4 different type of organizations. You have companies, individual companies, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Carrefour, whatever, an individual company that has a department that does lobbying, public affairs, or whatever they name it. Then you have what is called trade association. I work for a trade association, for instance. A trade association, what is it? It's an organization that represents the interest of an entire sector of it. So it's not working for one company; it's working for all the companies, all the membership that represents various companies. It can be an entire sector, etc. So it's a federation of private interests. So you're not working for one company, you're working for everyone in your membership, everyone in the sector. So to say, you tend to represent a sector of activity. So you have a trade association of I work for a trade association of books. You will have trade association of brick, trade association of tech companies, etc. So it's the collective interest of a private sector in general. So companies, trade association. You will have NGOs, so non-governmental organizations. So they don't represent a private interest. So BEUC would fall under the category of NGO. And last one, consultants. Consultants, what is it? It's a bit the mercenaries of lobbying. To simplify heavily, it's companies whose job is to do lobbying, and they take different clients. It can be a company, it can be a trade association, it can be whoever who will pay them to help them into their lobbying because they are experts. And so you can have like a company in Germany. They need to do lobbying at EU level. They don't know how to do lobbying at EU level. They don't know necessarily well the European institution. They don't have a network or whatever. So they will pay a consultant to represent them in Brussels, to help them in Brussels, so that their influence, so that they can convey their message to the right people in Brussels. So it can be like you have consultancy that can represent NGOs, you have consultancy that represent company, the consultancy that represent trade association. So basically the mercenaries of lobbying. Like mercenary might be a bit strong word because that's a connotation, but yeah, they rent their expertise to people to help them lobby, to help them push their point in Brussels. So that's consultancy. Something that was interesting that she said was the whole agenda setting. Like, what do you do when you're lobbying? Lobbying is not just like writing amendments and sending them to members of the parliament to try to get them to table into legislation. The first thing is what she called agenda setting. You need to get first the topic on the table. You need to put it on the radar, and that's something that takes a long time. She said that, for instance, she was talking about roaming, so the fact that you don't have to pay extra money for the data when you are using your phone outside your home country. That's roaming. She said that took 12 years to do that because it first started from a study that one of our members did at French level. I think she mentioned. So they say, okay, this is the cost of roaming, and then you push the topic to the European Commission to tell them, okay, look. This is a topic that is important. There are issues. We gathered evidence to show you that there is a real problem. Look at it, etc. And you convince the Commission, you convince people that there is an issue, and that issue. So it's a reality. It's not something that you invented. Yet there is something tangible there, and that it needs to be acted upon. That there needs to be political action on it, and then you convince the Commission to make a paper, to make a legislation about it, and then you go back to the normal legislative process. You do amendments, you convince MEPs, you convince member state to amend the legislation in the way that you want, and that gives you EU legislation. But it takes a very long time for actually something to from an idea to then become law, because you need first to convince the institution that it's a real problem. It's not something that has no consequences on people, that is not an issue, etc. So you need first to convince them to take an action, and then once they took the action, you modify things according to what is your interest, and etc. etc. What else did we discuss? So yeah, BEUC is a very respected organization. It's a big name in the Brussels scene. Yeah, we talked about like one of the reasons why I invited them, like as consumers, like what did the EU do for you for as consumers? So she said, oh yeah, for instance, in food systems, so we have the safest food, the best quality food in the world. We have excellent quality standards, safety standards. She mentioned card payment, so you can't be scammed easily. Labeling, now class actions. So ever since the Dieselgate, so Dieselgate, for those of you who don't know, it was scandal. I don't remember precisely what year it was, like probably 2015 or 2016. Let me check. Dieselgate. What year was it, Dieselgate? 2015. 2015, so what was Dieselgate? It was a scandal where it was discovered that Volkswagen, but then other car companies were proven to have the same thing. It was discovered that Volkswagen was cheating on the emission tests that their cars were taking. So there are pollution standards applicable to cars to make sure that there is no toxic fumes that comes out of your car, or not too toxic at the very least. And you have like a specific threshold, etc., and you have tests for those. And it was revealed that actually Volkswagen had cheated on this test, and that they were putting on the market cars that were much more polluting than they were claiming to be. And so they were, for instance, they were doing they had a specific thing where, if I recall correctly, their cars had a specific setting where when they were doing the lab test to test the emission, there was this setting that was reducing artificially the level of emissions so that the test would pass. Volkswagen car would be get the green light to be put on the market. And then once it's on the market, it runs on a normal standard, and actually it was not respecting the pollution standard. So it was a huge scandal. It created a lot of issues for Volkswagen, and it led notably to the creation of the class action system, an equivalent of a class action system in the EU. So in the US and in the United States, you probably saw in the movies, you have what you call class action. So for instance, you can have all consumers that collectively attack injustice, put a lawsuit to attack a company that made a damage to them collectively, and they can get like a huge compensation because they're not attacking as one single consumer, but they're attacking as hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who are saying, yes, this person damaged us in one shape or form, and so it adds power to the lawsuit. And that's something that the Europeans consumers were very jealous about. One of the few things that the US had over us, because in Europe we did not have such a system. So it would be an individual consumers would have to go to justice and try to ask a big company for compensation, which of course was very difficult. And because of Dieselgate, it forced the Commission to an extent to recognize the issue. Why? Because when Dieselgate happened, so it was a worldwide scandal. In the US, there were immediately class actions that were taken, and Volkswagen, not wanting to have to deal with class action, immediately wrote a huge check to all American consumers, all their American clients, to compensate them. Immediately, they said, okay, fine, we're going to settle the class action. Here's a huge chunk of money for you. And in Europe, there was no such thing, or very limited compensation, because they did not have this threat of the class action. And so because of this, what in now in EU you call the collective redress mechanism, basically a form of class action. It's not exactly the same as in the EU and the US, because the American system has its own problems, because you can have like sometimes class actions are meant just to make money, actually, where there's not a real problem, or the problem is benign, but you have lawyers who are paid as a percentage of the overall compensation. So they're trying to encourage people to do lawsuit, to do class actions, because they will get a lot of money, and that's how they're going to get paid. So that can lead also to abuses. The European system is supposed to be a bit better to avoid this kind of abuses. Now it's being transposed, but because of Dieselgate, now you have an equivalent of the class action system in Europe. What else did we discuss? That's it. So she was very clear that BEUC works a lot on environmental policies, sustainability issues, because it's something that affects consumers. She said, yeah, even if sometimes things can maybe have a bit more be a bit more costly for us, for consumers, in the long term, it's something that is necessary, because otherwise, well, we won't have a planet, and then it's going to be terrible for all consumers. So it's better to have a system that is nudging people towards being more sustainable and all that. And she said, yeah, the problem now that we see is that there is a phenomenon of green fatigue. What is green fatigue? It's, in a way, we discussed it in the past here on the channel, in the news review and all that, is the backlash that you're seeing from governments, from part of the population against green policies, in the sense that people are saying, oh, we already have a lot of problems, there's already been a lot of legislation about climate change, etc. It's becoming too much. We don't have patience anymore, we don't have political willingness anymore to do more on green policies. And so that led to some governments. So she mentioned the Belgian Prime Minister, Macron in France, and made similar comments. Other leaders in other countries made similar declarations, saying, "Oh yeah, we should hit the pause button on new climate legislation, because it's already like too much. It's becoming very difficult to follow. Consumers are not happy about it. Voters are not happy about it. So there's a willingness to slow down on all the green policies, and that worries a bit the consumer organization, because they feel that then you're losing momentum. If you hit pause, you're losing momentum, so there is less and less incentive to keep going forward, to keep producing legislation on environmental policies, and so in the end, it will lead to a stagnation, and it will not be able to fulfill its objectives in terms of environmental policy. What else? If there's something else you want me to discuss, and put it in the chat. Otherwise, I will continue. I have 2 more points. Preparation of the next mandate. So, of course, a lobby works when you have a parliament, when you have a commission. They go see MEPs, they go see the commission. They try to convince them to do things, to nudge the legislation in one way or another. But what happens when there's no activity? When, well, the parliament is not active because you have European elections. So from April next year, MEPs will not be working. They will not be gathering in the European Parliament to do legislation. They will be back home campaigning to potentially be re-elected. The Commission will not propose new legislation because they're waiting for the new Parliament. They will have a new president of the Commission. So what does a lobby do in this period? They're not like for 6 months just waiting at the office for things to happen. Actually, they're very active, because you prepare already the next mandate. And she said, yeah, that's already something that we're doing now, preparing the next mandate. So we are 1 year, a bit less now than 1 year before the election, and lobbies, organizations are already at work to try to prepare the next mandate, to influence the Commission, to get the Commission to prepare actions for the next mandate, so that, well, of course, you will have a new Commission, you will have new commissioners, new president of the Commission, you will have new MEPs, but they will not start from scratch. It's not, you won't have the commissioner who, after being nominated, will sit at his office and say, oh, what do I do today? Oh, I have an idea, we're going to do that. No, you have already the services, the DGs, so the DGs are the equivalent of ministries in the Commission, who have done a lot of work, and you will say, well, pending the political priorities, we've done the work, we can propose this is issues that we have identified, we could review this legislation, etc., etc. So they then arrive already on day one with a pile of things that that commissioner can do, that the commission can propose to relaunch the machine. And so that's the work that is being done now. It's giving information to the commission, to tell them, hey, guys, for the next mandate, it would be great if you could take an action on this topic. We have noticed this thing. Here's a study that shows that there is an issue. The commission will look at it. There will be consultation, etc. But it's already food for thoughts. Let's say you're telling the commission, okay, here are things that you could potentially do for the next mandate. Then at national level, what do you do? Or it's more like national members, and it's not people in Brussels who will do it often, is the national members of BEUC, for instance, who will do the same thing, but for political parties. They will go see political parties to tell them, hey, if you want to defend the interest of consumers, well, this is the things that we think would be good. And so in a way, they're trying to influence, they're doing lobbying, but on political parties, so that when the political parties present their priorities, when they prepare their program, well, they will have listened to a different organization, and they'll say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, you convinced us, so we're going to include that in our program, and they will include that to their political priorities. So that's also another important part of what organization lobbies do, or it's a lobbying action that many organizations do at when you're getting close to any election, is trying to influence the political program of political parties, because of course programs don't come out of thin air. It's a whole process. There's a lot of consultation. It's also a work of lobbying that is being done behind, so that then you have momentum to push for particular priorities when the elections are done. And final point on my little list is transparency debates. So I showed you. Actually, I will show you again. So that's a transparency register. So that's this website of the European Commission. No, that's the European Union. I want to go back to the transparency register there. So this website of the managed by the European Commission, that's, well, centralized information on all the lobbies are out there. So you can see, like, for instance, let's see the here you see the latest 5 organizations that register on lobbies. Like, for instance, there's a thing called Brussels Ion Corp. What is Ion Corp? They registered today. You see that they registered for the first time actually to 1 week and a half ago. What is it? It's a public benefit entity. They belong to the company. They're an American company. See, based in Princeton. Tells you who they are, who is in charge of EU relations. There is a description of what is their goal, blah, blah, blah. So it gives you a lot of information. But this transparency register, which is not mandatory, not everyone has necessarily to fulfill it, even if many do. A large majority of lobbies are in there, and they have an incentive to be in there. But there are debates on how can you improve the transparency register, how do you do things. So there is a question of enforcement. How do you make sure that, for instance, Ion Corp that is there provided information that are real, that they're not lying in their things. So a big debate these days on transparency, the transparency register, is how do you check things? Because at the moment, the transparency register does not have a lot of resources. You don't have a lot of people working on it. They maintain it, etc. But out of, there's a lot of submission, and there's like as of today, there's 12,309 organizations that are registered in the transparency register. Of course, today they're not checking the 12,309 organizations that's that registered to check that every single information is correct. They will do a sample, so they will take a bit at random to check, okay, does that look legit or not? They may ask for more information. They may delete and sanction organizations that lie or that provide inaccurate information, but it's not systematic because they don't have enough staff to deal with it. So a big question is, how do you reinforce the management of this transparency register? Do you give it important powers in terms of investigation? What level of information should organization give when they register? etc., etc. So that's already one part, the enforcement, and that's something I discussed at the very end. After Qatargate, so the corruption scandal that happened a year ago now almost, the commission had the idea to, it's already something that was a bit in the pipeline, but Qatargate gave it political momentum. Just gonna put myself back in the. Oh, actually no. Let me check if it's indicated. Let's see. Well, BEUC. We invited BEUC. Let's see their thing. So BEUC, I didn't say it. BEUC, it's the French acronym. Bureau européen des unions des consommateurs. They use the French one because that's their historic name. It became a bit the brand, and they decided not to change it afterwards because everyone knows what BEUC is, and so they kept the French name, but everyone refers to it as BEUC. Let's see if they have where are the financing information. Otherwise, we're going to go to the official website. It's in there somewhere. Yield of interest, member of affiliation. It's not indicated there, so that's the grants. Let's see on their own website, because I know they have it on their BEUC. Boom, BEUC. About BEUC. Financial information. Tac. Where is it? I saw it earlier. Yes. We are funded. Sorry, I went on the wrong one. There we go. Foundations. So, following Qatargate, you had, which involved like fake NGOs and financing from non-European actors. The Commission said, okay, we're going to make a new legislation inspired a bit from what exists in the US, and the US has a law that is called the FARA legislation for foreign agent registration something. Which basically oblige organizations to say whether they are foreign agents, whether they are financed by non-American actors in certain conditions. And so the Commission say, okay, we're going to do a similar thing for European transparency register. Why? Well, to know if you have an organization that is financed by non-European actors. If you have something that is financed by China, something that is financed by Russia, Qatar, or another organization, so that, well, who you're dealing with, so that these non-European actors cannot hide behind a fake organization to push their interest, because something that we have seen, both legally and illegally, being legally and illegally done, is companies, countries, sometimes financing organizations in the EU to lobby for them, but without really saying that they were lobbying for that. So, for instance, take Qatar. You would have Qatar that would be creating or financing an NGO on human rights, for instance. So this NGO would say, yes, I'm an NGO working on human rights, and so this is what I think on human rights. I'm trying to influence people in the parliament in the Commission on Human Rights, while actually they are financed by Qatar and pushing the agenda of Qatar on human rights, which of course is not exactly the best. And for the Commission and MEP would not approach in the same way a meeting if they were meeting Qatar, or if they're meeting an NGO that claims to be working on human rights. So you have sometimes an incentive for certain organization to hide themselves behind another layer of organization to push their interest, but without them being seen. Another example is big tech companies. Something at some point they were doing that a lot. I think they're still doing it. Is they finance a lot of different organizations, and then this organization will lobby, but actually pushing an agenda that is very, very close to the argumentations that Google will do, for instance. So one case that you had was an organization that was claiming to represent SMEs, so small and medium enterprises, but actually this organization was financed by big tech, and when it was coming to tech issues, they were, under the guise of representing SMEs, actually pushing an agenda that was compatible with the agenda of Google. And so in a way, they were misleading people on what they represent. But going back to Farah, so there is a big push now in the Commission to try to shed some light a bit on foreign financing in Brussels. And one area where there is considered to be a bit of not very transparent is the topic of foundations. What is a foundation? It's a philanthropic organization that is set up by people, by companies, etc. And with that, it's very done a lot in the US, for instance. They have huge funds, and they use this money to finance a bunch of initiatives, a bunch of other organizations to push an agenda. And there's a lot of criticism that these foundations are a bit some sort of black boxes, because you don't really know who is behind this foundation necessarily, or they are foundation being founded by other foundation being founded by other organizations, etc. It becomes like very complicated to know actually what are they actually lobbying for, financing. Are they in a way like pushing a private agenda? So there's a lot of debates on foundations and whether they are let's say as philanthropic as they claim, or if they push, sometimes they may be pushing the interest of companies, of non-European interests, etc., etc. So that's one of the reasons why the Commission wanted to do something on that, but it's creating a backlash from a number of NGOs. Why? Because many NGOs are financed through foundations, which can be non-European foundations, and they are afraid that if there is this new legislation, it's putting an additional burden on them that a private company would not have, and that it's creating a bit of a suspicion over them that they would be considered as financed by a foreign agent, and say, oh yeah, that's the kind of narrative that we find in Russia, in Hungary, and this is used to discriminate against NGOs and to trying to make us appear as traitors, working against the interest of the state, working against the interest of the EU, etc., etc., because we receive money from the outside. So they're not very happy about that. There's a big fight happening over this over the past few months, and yeah, they're pretty unhappy with this. But yeah, that's what I had on my little notebook. Let me go back to this. Any questions or comment on your part? Otherwise, I do my little conclusion, and I will leave you to have a nice evening. No, I don't see anything. All right, let's do the conclusion then. So, I hope that you enjoyed the interview and the discussion. As usual, if you liked, follow the channel, if it's not already the case. If you have a Prime lying around, toss a coin to your streamer, that's always appreciated. Next time I see you, it's going to be in French tomorrow. For the French speaking, tomorrow I'm doing a react of season 2 of the TV show Parlement, which is taking place in the European Parliament. I have it's not a partnership, but I have the authorization of the producer and France Télévisions to do that. So I will show you the season 2 of the show on the channel, and I will discuss it and say, okay, what is true, what is not true in the show to shed a bit of a light on life in the European Parliament. Otherwise, I will see you on Thursday for the news review, as usual, and on Sunday as well, before another news review, but in French this time. As usual, do follow me on my other social media. Up, there you go. You have all the links, Discord, Twitter, all the good things. That's where you have the agendas and everything. So make sure to click and follow there. And yeah, so all I have to do now is to wish you all a good evening, and I will see you next time. Bye guys. Ciao.